Imagine living in a time of complete moral and social chaos, where your people have been oppressed for decades with no hope of liberation. Leadership is weak, morale is shattered, and the situation seems hopeless. In this bleak setting, an unexpected figure arises. Deborah, a woman in a position of power in a male-dominated world, carrying an unwavering faith and a wisdom that would change the destiny of an entire nation. But what truly makes her story so impactful? Is the secret in her courage, her prophecies, or the fact that she defied the social expectations of her time? You will discover that Israel's victory was not just a matter of military strategy. It was a battle of faith, led by someone who dared to believe that God had a greater plan, even when everything seemed lost. And the most surprising part? Deborah's greatest victory wasn't on the battlefield, but over the limitations imposed by the world around her. And you? Are you ready to learn about one of the most fascinating stories in Scripture, where a woman rises as a symbol of leadership and determination? Get ready to dive into this journey and discover how Deborah led her people to victory against all odds. Deborah's leadership stands out as a shining example of what it means to lead with both wisdom and faith. In a time of chaos and instability in Israel, she didn't just react to the circumstances. She became the solution. As a judge and prophetess, Deborah was unique not only because she was a woman in a male-dominated role, but because she delivered God's word with such conviction that everyone around her couldn't help but listen. Her wisdom was sought by the entire nation. You see, it's one thing to be in charge, but it's another to command respect through character. Deborah did just that. Imagine being in her shoes, carrying the weight of an entire nation's moral and social burdens on your shoulders, yet still standing firm. It's not just about leading, it's about knowing when to stand up for what's right, even when it's unpopular. What makes Deborah even more fascinating is how she balanced her roles. She wasn't just a judge, she was also a prophetess, meaning she had direct communication with God. Now, think about that, receiving divine guidance in a time when most people were lost in their own ways. It's like having a direct hotline to the ultimate source of wisdom, and she never hesitated to use it. Deborah didn't just offer her own opinions. She passed on God's messages, ensuring that the people had a clear path forward. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you didn't have all the answers, but you knew deep down that the right course of action would be revealed to you? That's what Deborah lived every day. Her leadership was not just about power, it was about being a vessel for a higher purpose. Deborah's strength wasn't just in her words, but in her actions. She didn't wait for someone else to step up and fix the problems Israel faced. She took the lead. This is where her story becomes relatable. How often do we find ourselves waiting for someone else to solve the issues we see? Deborah teaches us that real leadership means taking initiative, even when it's uncomfortable. Think about it. How many opportunities to lead have passed by because we were waiting for the right moment or someone more qualified? Deborah didn't wait. She acted. And in doing so, she became an example for all of Israel. For 20 long years, the people of Israel suffered under the oppressive rule of King Jabin of Canaan. The sheer weight of his dominance was felt in every aspect of their lives, and Sisera, his military commander, was a constant source of terror. Sisera's army, with its 900 iron chariots, was practically invincible, a force that Israel, in its weakened state, had no hope of defeating on its own. Imagine the hopelessness of facing an enemy equipped with technology and might far beyond your own. These iron chariots weren't just military machines. They were symbols of Canaan's overwhelming power. It's not unlike feeling overwhelmed by obstacles in our own lives, whether it's a financial challenge, a personal struggle, or a seemingly unbeatable adversary. The Israelites felt trapped, much like we often do when we see no way out of our difficulties. But what's interesting is how long the oppression lasted. 2 decades. You can almost feel the frustration, the despair, and the longing for deliverance that must have consumed the hearts of the people. When you're oppressed for that long, it's easy to start believing that things will never change, that this is your fate. In many ways, their situation mirrors the challenges we face today. Sometimes we endure hardships for so long that we forget what freedom even feels like. Yet, in the story of Israel under Jabin's rule, there's a lesson. Even in the darkest of times, change is possible. It reminds us that no matter how overwhelming the odds seem, there's always a glimmer of hope. Sisera, with his 900 chariots, represented the pinnacle of Canaanite strength. To the Israelites, his army was more than just a physical threat, it was a psychological one. Every time they saw those iron chariots, it reinforced the idea that their enemy was unbeatable. It's not unlike the challenges we face today that seem insurmountable. Whether it's a daunting career obstacle or a personal battle, the presence of something powerful and intimidating can make us feel small and powerless. But as we'll see later in this story, appearances can be deceiving. Sometimes, the things that seem strongest are also the most vulnerable when the right moment comes. Israel's suffering under King Jabin wasn't just physical, it was also spiritual. The people had strayed from God, and as a result, they found themselves in this position of weakness and subjugation. This part of the story is a reminder that when we lose our way spiritually, we often find ourselves in difficult circumstances. It's not necessarily a punishment, but a consequence of living outside of alignment with our values and beliefs. For Israel, their suffering was a wake-up call. Much like the challenges we face can often be wake-up calls for us. It's during these times of difficulty that we have the opportunity to realign ourselves with what truly matters. The fact that Israel endured 20 years of oppression is significant because it shows how deeply entrenched their problems were. It wasn't something that could be fixed overnight. Sometimes, in our own lives, we expect quick solutions to complex problems, but real change often takes time. The Israelites had to go through 2 decades of hardship before they were ready for the deliverance that was coming. This is a powerful lesson for us. Patience and perseverance are key when facing our own struggles. While we may not be able to see the solution immediately, that doesn't mean it isn't coming. Just like Israel, we have to trust that deliverance will arrive when the time is right. The people of Israel, despite their oppression, still had a collective memory of their past victories, of the times when God had delivered them from the hands of their enemies. It's important to remember that even in the darkest moments, there's a history of triumph to lean on. The Israelites had seen miracles before, and while they may have felt abandoned during Jabin's rule, they knew that God hadn't forgotten them. In our own lives, when we feel crushed by the weight of our problems, it's crucial to remember the victories we've already experienced. These victories remind us that no challenge is too great to overcome. As the years of oppression dragged on, the Israelites likely found themselves questioning why God had allowed them to suffer for so long. This is a question many of us grapple with when facing prolonged difficulties. We wonder why our challenges persist and why relief seems so far away. But sometimes, enduring hardship is a necessary part of the journey. It's in these moments that we are shaped and prepared for the greater things ahead. The story of Israel under Jabin's rule is a reminder that suffering is not the end. It's a process that often leads to greater strength and wisdom. Sisera's power, while fearsome, was ultimately a challenge that Israel would overcome. In life, we face obstacles that seem invincible, but just like Sisera's chariots, these obstacles often have weaknesses we can't see at first. The story of Israel's oppression teaches us to remain hopeful even when everything seems stacked against us. It's a lesson in resilience, in trusting that the strength we need to overcome our challenges is within us, waiting to be called forth when the time is right. Oppression often leads people to a point of desperation, but it's in this desperation that breakthroughs occur. The Israelites, after 20 years of suffering, were ready for a change. They were ready to cry out to God for help, and they were ready to follow Deborah's lead into battle. This part of the story is a powerful reminder that sometimes we have to reach rock bottom before we're willing to make the changes necessary for victory. It's in these moments of desperation that we find the strength to fight back and reclaim what's rightfully ours. Finally, the story of Israel's oppression under Jabin sets the stage for one of the most dramatic deliverances in biblical history. It reminds us that no matter how dire the circumstances, there's always a way out when we trust in something greater than ourselves. Just as Deborah would later lead the charge against Sisera's army, we too can overcome our greatest challenges by tapping into the strength and wisdom that's available to us when we seek it. God's call to Deborah and Barak was not just a simple instruction, it was a pivotal moment in Israel's history. Deborah, with her unwavering faith and connection to God, received a message that could change everything. It was time for Israel to rise up against their oppressors. She summoned Barak, a respected military leader, and delivered God's command to gather 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun. Imagine the weight of that responsibility, knowing that this was a divine mission, but also realizing the incredible risk involved. Barak, despite being a seasoned warrior, hesitated at first. After all, they were up against Sisera's unbeatable army. It's a situation many of us can relate to, knowing what needs to be done, but feeling the fear of failure or inadequacy. Deborah's strength came not from military prowess, but from her faith, and she passed that strength on to Barak. What makes this moment even more profound is Barak's response. He didn't refuse the call, but he also didn't rush in blindly. Instead, he made a request that highlights both his respect for Deborah and his need for reassurance. He asked her to come with him into battle. Barak's request wasn't about needing physical protection, it was about needing spiritual support. In times of uncertainty, it's natural to seek the presence of someone we trust, someone who can provide guidance and strength. Deborah agreed, but with one important condition: the glory of the victory would go to a woman, not to Barak. This was both a prophetic declaration and a test of humility. Barak had to accept that, although he would lead the troops, the ultimate victory would not be his to claim. It's a reminder to all of us that sometimes, the greatest victories in life aren't about personal recognition, but about fulfilling a larger purpose. Deborah's presence on the battlefield was symbolic of God's promise to Israel. As she stood beside Barak, she represented more than just a leader. She was the embodiment of God's will. It's important to understand that Deborah wasn't a warrior in the traditional sense, but her role in the battle was no less critical. She was there to remind Barak and all of Israel that the real power behind their victory wasn't in their numbers or their weapons, but in their faith and obedience to God's plan. How often in our own lives do we find ourselves in battles where the odds seem impossible? Yet, if we have the right mindset, the right guidance, and the right faith, we can overcome even the most insurmountable challenges. Barak's hesitation at first may seem like a flaw, but in reality, it's a reflection of human nature. Even the strongest among us can feel fear when faced with overwhelming odds. What matters is not that fear, but how we respond to it. Barak didn't let his initial doubts stop him from moving forward. With Deborah by his side, he gathered the 10,000 men and prepared for battle. It's a lesson in courage. It's not about being fearless, but about taking action despite the fear. In many ways, we all face our own Arab moments, where the task ahead seems impossible. But like Barak, when we lean on the right people and trust in a higher purpose, we find the strength to keep going. The call to Barak was also a test of leadership. He had to rally an army of men who had been living under oppression for 2 decades. These men were not seasoned soldiers. They were farmers, shepherds, and ordinary people who had no experience in battle. Yet, under Barak's leadership and Deborah's guidance, they became a force to be reckoned with. This transformation is a powerful reminder that leadership isn't about having the most qualified people. It's about inspiring those around you to rise to the occasion. In our own lives, we often underestimate the power of encouragement and belief. Sometimes, all it takes is one person who believes in us to change everything. God's call to Deborah and Barak was a call to action, but it was also a call to trust. Trust in the plan, trust in the timing, and trust in the outcome. Deborah knew that the victory was already secured because it was God's will. Barak, however, had to take that leap of faith, leading his men into a battle that seemed impossible to win. It's a reminder that, in life, we are often called to step out in faith before we see the results. We may not always understand how things will work out, but when we trust in a higher purpose, we can move forward with confidence, knowing that the outcome is in God's hands. What's fascinating about this part of the story is the partnership between Deborah and Barak. They each had their roles to play, and neither could have succeeded without the other. This partnership is a reflection of how, in life, we often need to collaborate with others to achieve our goals. Deborah's wisdom and spiritual guidance, combined with Barak's military leadership, created a powerful synergy that led to victory. It's a lesson for all of us about the importance of teamwork and recognizing that we don't have to do everything on our own. Sometimes, the best way to succeed is to bring together different strengths and perspectives. As Barak gathered his army and prepared for battle, there must have been a sense of anticipation and fear among the troops. They knew they were about to face an army that was far superior in terms of equipment and experience. Yet, with Deborah's presence and the knowledge that this was God's will, they moved forward. This is a reminder that, in life, we often have to step into the unknown with nothing but faith to guide us. Whether it's a new job, a difficult decision, or a personal challenge, we can take comfort in knowing that, like Barak and his men, we are not alone in our battles. In the end, God's call to Deborah and Barak wasn't just about defeating Sisera's army. It was about restoring hope to a nation that had been oppressed for too long. It was about showing the people of Israel that no matter how powerful their enemies seemed, they could overcome anything with faith and courage. This part of the story is a powerful reminder that, no matter how dark things may seem, there is always a way forward. Sometimes, it just takes someone like Deborah to help us see the path ahead. The battle against Sisera's formidable army was unlike any Israel had ever faced before. As Barak and his 10,000 men descended from Mount Tabor, they knew they were about to confront an enemy that had crushed them for 2 decades. Sisera's 900 iron chariots were feared throughout the land, a symbol of invincibility. Yet, this was no ordinary battle. God had a plan, and it began to unfold in the most unexpected way. Just as the armies clashed, a sudden storm broke out, drenching the battlefield. What seemed like a coincidence was, in fact, divine intervention. The heavy rains turned the ground into a muddy quagmire, rendering Sisera's powerful chariots useless. This moment is a reminder that even the mightiest forces can be brought to their knees when God intervenes. It's a powerful lesson that no matter how impossible a situation seems, there is always a way out when we trust in a higher purpose. The mud, which should have been an advantage for Sisera's forces, became their downfall. The chariots, once symbols of strength and terror, were now trapped and immobile in the thick sludge. This is the essence of divine intervention. It takes what seems insurmountable and turns it on its head. In life, we often face our own battles where the odds seem overwhelmingly against us. But just like in this battle, when we least expect it, the very things that work against us can be flipped in our favor. It's a reminder that we should never lose hope, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. The Israelites, with their faith in God's plan, saw the impossible happen right before their eyes. Barak and his men, emboldened by the sight of Sisera's immobilized army, charged forward. The chaos caused by the storm and the mud gave them the upper hand. What was once a battle of numbers and technology became a fight of faith and perseverance. The Canaanite soldiers, unable to maneuver their chariots, were now vulnerable to the swift attack of the Israelites. This part of the story serves as a reminder that when we step into action, even when things seem impossible, we unlock the potential for miracles to happen. The Israelites didn't sit back and wait. They moved forward with faith, and in doing so, they found victory. The storm was not just a physical event. It was a manifestation of God's power and presence in the battle. It was a clear sign that this victory was not just the result of strategy or manpower. It was the result of divine intervention. In life, we often focus on the practical aspects of our challenges. The resources, the strategy, the numbers. But this story teaches us that sometimes, success comes from an unexpected source, one that we can't control or predict. It's a reminder to keep our faith strong, even when we don't see how things will work out. The storm that stopped Sisera's army is symbolic of the unforeseen help that can come our way when we trust in something greater than ourselves. What's remarkable about this battle is how quickly the tide turned. Sisera's army, which had been Israel's greatest fear for 20 years, was defeated in a single day. This rapid shift is a reminder of how quickly things can change when divine intervention is at play. In our own lives, we often expect that overcoming challenges will be a slow, gradual process. But this story shows us that sometimes, change can happen in an instant. The key is to remain ready and to keep moving forward, even when the path seems unclear. Just as Barak's men pressed on despite the odds, we too must push forward, trusting that the breakthrough we need could come at any moment. Sisera, seeing the defeat of his army, fled the battlefield in a panic. This moment of desperation for the once powerful commander is a powerful image of how the mighty can fall. It serves as a reminder that no matter how strong our enemies, or our challenges, appear, they are never invincible. Sisera's flight is symbolic of the way fear and desperation can take hold of those who rely solely on their own strength. In contrast, Barak and the Israelites, who placed their trust in God, found victory where there seemed to be no hope. This is a lesson for all of us. When we rely on our own strength, we may falter, but when we trust in a higher power, we can achieve the impossible. The complete victory over Sisera's army was a moment of liberation for Israel. After 20 years of oppression, they were finally free. This freedom didn't come through sheer force or military strategy. It came through faith and divine intervention. This part of the story is a powerful reminder that true freedom, whether it's from external oppressors or internal struggles, often comes when we surrender our own plans and trust in God's timing. The Israelites didn't have the means to defeat Sisera on their own, but with God's help, they achieved what seemed impossible. It's a reminder that when we let go of our need to control everything, we open ourselves up to the possibility of miracles. The battle also serves as a reminder of the importance of taking action when the opportunity presents itself. Barak and his men could have hesitated, doubted, or even retreated when they saw Sisera's army. But instead, they moved forward in faith, and that made all the difference. In life, we often find ourselves waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, or the perfect plan before we take action. But sometimes, we just need to move forward, trusting that things will fall into place as we go. The Israelites didn't wait for a guarantee of victory. They stepped into the battle with faith, and the rest was history. The story of the battle against Sisera is a testament to the power of faith, perseverance, and divine intervention. It shows us that even when the odds are stacked against us, there is always a way forward when we trust in God. This battle wasn't just about defeating a physical enemy. It was about reclaiming hope, freedom, and the belief that anything is possible with faith. Just as the Israelites found victory in the most unlikely circumstances, we too can find victory in our own lives, no matter how impossible the situation may seem. As the battle raged and Sisera's forces crumbled, the commander himself fled in desperation, leaving his troops behind. His once mighty army, invincible for 2 decades, was now in ruins, and Sisera, the feared leader, became a fugitive. He sought refuge in the tent of Jael, a Kenite woman, believing it to be a safe place to hide. What he didn't realize, however, was that Jael was about to play a critical role in fulfilling Deborah's prophecy. Now, let's pause for a moment. Imagine being Jael, an ordinary woman with no military training, faced with the opportunity to end the life of the man who had oppressed your people for so long. It's a situation that required not just courage, but incredible decisiveness. Jael wasn't waiting for someone else to solve the problem. She took matters into her own hands. When Sisera arrived at Jael's tent, he was exhausted, defeated, and desperate for a place to hide. Jael welcomed him in, offering him milk to drink and a place to rest. It's important to understand the cultural context here. Hospitality was a sacred duty, and offering shelter to someone, even an enemy, was a sign of peace. But Jael's mind was focused on something greater than cultural customs. She knew that this was her moment, and she seized it. As Sisera slept, Jael took a tent peg and a hammer and drove it through his temple, killing him instantly. This act of bravery not only ended Sisera's life but fulfilled Deborah's prophecy that victory would come at the hands of a woman. Jael's courage in this moment is a powerful reminder that sometimes, the most unexpected people are called to do the most extraordinary things. Jael's decision to kill Sisera wasn't just an act of violence. It was a strategic move that changed the course of history. She recognized that this was her chance to deliver a fatal blow to Israel's enemy, and she didn't hesitate. It's a reminder that in life, we are often faced with critical decisions that require swift and decisive action. Jael didn't wait for permission, and she didn't second-guess herself. She trusted her instincts and acted. How many times have we found ourselves in situations where we knew what needed to be done but hesitated out of fear or doubt? Jael's story challenges us to be bold, to trust ourselves, and to take action when the moment calls for it. What's fascinating about Jael's act is how it completely subverts the expectations of the time. Women were not typically seen as key players in military victories. Yet here was Jael, single-handedly delivering the final blow to Israel's greatest enemy. This part of the story is a powerful reminder that greatness isn't limited by gender, status, or experience. Jael wasn't a warrior, a judge, or a prophetess like Deborah. She was an ordinary woman who found herself in an extraordinary situation. And in that moment, she rose to the occasion. It's a lesson for all of us that sometimes, the most unlikely people are the ones who make the biggest impact. Jael's story is a testament to the idea that anyone, no matter their background, can be a vessel for great change. Sisera's death at the hands of Jael was not just a personal victory, it was a victory for all of Israel. His death marked the end of Canaan's oppressive reign, and it was Jael's courage that brought that chapter to a close. This part of the story teaches us that sometimes the most significant contributions to a cause come from unexpected places. Jael wasn't in the battlefield with Barak's men, but her actions off the battlefield were just as crucial to Israel's victory. In our own lives, we might not always be in the spotlight or on the front lines, but that doesn't mean our actions don't matter. Jael's story is a reminder that every role, no matter how small it may seem, is important when it comes to achieving a greater purpose. Jael's act of bravery is also a powerful example of what it means to take ownership of a situation. She didn't wait for someone else to solve the problem. She took matters into her own hands and made a decisive move. This is a lesson that can be applied to all areas of life. Whether it's in our personal relationships, our careers, or our communities, there are moments when we need to step up and take action. JL's story challenges us to be proactive, to trust our instincts, and to seize the opportunities that come our way, even if they're uncomfortable or risky. Sometimes, the greatest victories come from the boldest actions. What's particularly interesting about JL's story is how it fits into the larger narrative of Deborah's leadership. Deborah had prophesied that a woman would be the one to deliver the final blow to Sisera, and JL's act fulfilled that prophecy in a way that no one could have expected. This part of the story reminds us that even when things don't go according to our plans, there's often a bigger plan at work that we can't see. Deborah's prophecy came true, but not in the way anyone expected. JL's actions show us that sometimes the path to victory is filled with surprises, and it's our job to embrace those surprises and make the most of them. JL's story also highlights the power of individuals to change the course of history. It's easy to think that we, as individuals, can't make a difference in the grand scheme of things. But JL, an ordinary woman with no military training, played a pivotal role in one of Israel's greatest victories. Her story is a reminder that each of us has the power to influence the world around us in ways we may not even realize. Whether it's through a single act of courage or a lifetime of service, we all have the potential to make a lasting impact. Finally, JL's courageous act reminds us that sometimes we are called to step into roles we never expected. JL wasn't a warrior, but in that moment, she became one. She wasn't a leader, but her actions led to the defeat of Israel's greatest enemy. Her story is a reminder that we don't always get to choose the roles we play in life, but when the moment comes, we must be ready to rise to the occasion. After the stunning victory over Sisera and the Canaanite forces, Deborah and Barak didn't just celebrate with a typical victory feast or rest from the battle. Instead, they composed a song, one of the most powerful and poetic expressions of triumph found in the Bible. The Song of Deborah and Barak is more than just a recounting of events. It is a celebration of divine intervention, a tribute to the bravery of the Israelites, and an acknowledgement of God's hand in their victory. Through this song, they immortalized the moment, ensuring that future generations would remember how God had delivered them from their enemies. In many ways, this song served as a form of storytelling, a way to keep the memory of this miraculous victory alive. The Song of Deborah is not only a poetic masterpiece but also a call to remember the importance of leadership and courage in the face of adversity. The song praises the leaders of Israel who stepped forward, the warriors who fought bravely, and even the common people who contributed to the victory. It's a reminder that great victories are never achieved alone. Deborah, Barak, and JL each played crucial roles, but so did the 10,000 men who answered the call to fight. This part of the song serves as a powerful lesson in leadership. True leaders inspire others to rise to the occasion and contribute to the collective good. It's a reminder for us that, in life, we must recognize and appreciate the contributions of others in our own victories. What makes this song so unique is its emphasis on God's role in the victory. Deborah and Barak understood that, while they had led the battle, the victory ultimately belonged to God. The song repeatedly acknowledges that it was God who made the storm come at just the right moment, God who rendered Sisera's chariots useless, and God who gave Israel the strength to overcome their oppressors. This humble acknowledgement is a lesson in gratitude and perspective. In our own lives, it's easy to take credit for our successes, but the Song of Deborah reminds us to remain humble and recognize the larger forces at play. Whether you believe in divine intervention or simply the influence of fate, this story encourages us to look beyond ourselves and appreciate the bigger picture. The song also highlights the power of remembrance. By setting their victory to music, Deborah and Barak ensured that this story would be passed down through generations. Music has a way of connecting us to history in ways that mere words cannot. The rhythm, the melody, and the emotion behind the song create a lasting impression that stays with people long after the moment has passed. In the same way, we should find ways to immortalize our own victories and important moments in life. Whether it's through writing, storytelling, or even creating our own rituals, remembering the past helps us stay grounded and gives us strength for the future. Another important aspect of the Song of Deborah is its celebration of women's roles in the victory. Both Deborah and JL are prominently featured in the song, a rare occurrence in a time when women were often relegated to the background of history. Deborah is praised as a mother in Israel, a figure of both wisdom and strength, while JL is hailed as the woman who delivered the final blow to Israel's enemy. This celebration of women's bravery and leadership is a powerful reminder that everyone, regardless of gender, has a role to play in shaping the course of history. In a world where gender roles often limit potential, the Song of Deborah stands as a testament to the power of breaking those limitations. The song also touches on the consequences for those who didn't answer the call to fight. Certain tribes of Israel did not join the battle, and the song subtly calls them out for their lack of participation. This part of the song serves as a reminder that, in moments of great importance, choosing to stand on the sidelines can have lasting consequences. It's a lesson for all of us that there are times in life when we must step up and take action, even when it's uncomfortable or risky. Failing to do so can result in missed opportunities, not only for ourselves but for the greater good. At its core, the Song of Deborah and Barak is a celebration of unity. It's about how different people came together to achieve a common goal, despite the odds. Deborah, a prophetess and judge, led with wisdom and faith. Barak, a warrior, led with strength and strategy. Jael, an ordinary woman, delivered the final victory. Together, they achieved something that none of them could have done alone. This is a lesson for all of us. When we come together, combining our strengths and talents, we can achieve the impossible. The song is a reminder that unity is one of the most powerful forces we have in overcoming challenges. The Song of Deborah also reflects the joy that comes from witnessing a divine plan come to fruition. Deborah had prophesied that a woman would bring the final victory, and that prophecy was fulfilled through Jael's courageous act. The song celebrates this moment of fulfillment, showing that when we trust in God's plan or in something larger than ourselves, amazing things can happen. It's a reminder that, in life, things often happen in ways we can't predict or control, but when we have faith, we can look back and see how everything fell into place perfectly. Finally, the song closes with a message of peace. After years of oppression and suffering, Israel experienced peace for 40 years following this victory. This peace wasn't just the absence of war, it was a deeper, more profound peace that came from knowing they had been delivered from their enemies by the hand of God. It's a reminder that true peace comes not just from external circumstances, but from a deep sense of trust and faith. The Song of Deborah and Barak, in all its poetic beauty, captures this peace and leaves us with a sense of hope and gratitude for the victories in our own lives. After learning the inspiring story of Deborah, one thing becomes clear. Leadership and courage are not defined by gender, status, or circumstances. It's your actions, driven by faith, that shape your legacy. Just like Deborah, we are often called to face challenges that seem impossible. The question remains, are you ready to take control of your destiny and trust in a greater purpose, even when the path ahead appears uncertain? Think about the areas in your life where you might be hesitating, waiting for the perfect moment or absolute certainty. Deborah's story teaches us that the right moment is now, and that trusting in something greater than ourselves can lead us to victories we never imagined. So, why not start today? Reflect on your battles, whether at home, at work, or even in your spiritual journey. What are you waiting for to act with the same courage that Deborah demonstrated? If this story touched you, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep learning about transformative biblical stories like this one. Don't miss the opportunity to apply this knowledge in your life and be inspired by lessons that transcend time. And most importantly, share in the comments. What battle are you ready to face with Deborah's courage?